Hi, how's it going? I'm Hugh Richardson and welcome to this. This is the first in a new series of free YouTube lessons all about how to create your own bass lines. This is something I get asked about all the time by either my own private students, my Skype students, or people who get in touch with me. It's really common for a lot of these guys to be good players. They have a good technique and they know some scales, some arpeggios, and they know the fingerboard pretty well, but what they struggle with is really actually trying to apply this sort of applied theory, if you like. How do we go about sort of using this in a musical way to contribute to a band setup, or to start writing your own parts for tunes? What we're going to start looking at is a couple sort of tools that you can use. Not things that you always have to use by any means, but good things to sort of have in the bag. So if you get to a rehearsal, if you get to a recording session, let's say, and you can't quite think of anything on your own, you can go through a couple of these ideas and think, okay, maybe I could use that as an inspiration to start building something else. So what we're going to start looking at is actually going to be the kick drum in a drum groove. Let's say you go to a rehearsal with your band or something like that. The drummer comes in and says, I was playing at home last night, I came up with this really, really good idea for a part. Comes in and plays it. The question for you as a bass player then is going to be, okay, well, what can we get from his playing? What can we get from his part that would help you create your own? So the first thing we're going to start looking at, like I said, is going to be the kick drum. First question for a lot of people is obviously, why the kick drum? Why not the snare? Why not the hats, cymbals, or toms, or something else? The reason is the kick drum, like the bass guitar, or even upright bass if you play it, is that they're both low range, low frequency instruments. Having the two of them matched together within a groove helps the whole thing to sound a lot more stable, a lot more kind of organized, whereas if the two of those are sort of avoiding each other and out of sync, excuse me, the low end can sound incredibly muddy, incredibly disorganized, and not very stable at all. What you're trying to do as a bass player is, in 99% of cases, is to try and support the rest of the song, try and support the other musicians. So you want to come up with parts that are relevant to the song, they fit what else is happening, but you're not overshadowing, you're not overpowering anybody else. So I've got a drum groove programmed in here. Let's have a quick listen to it. We'll point out the kick drum and then discuss where we can go from there. So here's the drum groove. Now the kick drum is that loud sort of booming sound at the bottom end. So boom. That's the thing we want to try and focus on. So what I'm going to do is sort of what a lot of bass players often, a lot of musicians in fact, often refer to as locking in with the kick drum. What that means is I'm going to pick one note, well for now one note anyway, and just mimic that exact rhythm that the kick drum is playing. What this will give me, it'll give me something that sounds stable, it sounds solid, but it also fits the original idea that I was given. Remember, my drummer came in and he's really excited about this. He thinks he's written, something that could be the start of a great tune. I want to come up with something that complements that. So, check it out. First time through, I'm going to play through, and just to sort of demonstrate what I said a few moments ago, first time I'm going to completely avoid the kick drum. It won't necessarily sound bad, but it won't sound particularly stable, particularly kind of musical. It will sound a little bit like I'm not really listening to his idea. Then partway through I'm going to switch, going to lock in with the kick drum, and all of a sudden it will start to sound really sort of stable, really solid, start to sound like a really nice groove, and also it'll actually start to sound a little bit more like a piece of music. Those two, the bass and the drums combined, will actually start to sound like a bit more of a song, which ultimately is the goal for us. We want to be playing music, not just sort of coming up with instrumental parts that don't complement each other. So, here we go. Okay, so first of all, avoiding the kick drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't sound horrendous, it doesn't sound like I'm playing, a completely different song, but it doesn't quite feel right. It doesn't sound solid, it doesn't sound stable, it doesn't really sort of groove properly, for want of a better term. Check it out this time. This time, if I start using the kick drum, mimic it, lock in with it, all of a sudden, just using the same note, D, 5th fret on the A string, it will start to sound a lot more strong, and it will really start to sound like a piece of music. Here we go, check it out. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Much better. So you can see with that, the kind of key to this is all in the analysis. It's all in me really taking on board someone else's idea, and they said, you know, they're really excited about it. You know, and it's a nice drum beat, it's a great groove. So my question for here is, all I have to do is analyze that, sort of try and listen to the kick drum, really take note of what it's doing, and then I can start to use that as a basis to start building my line. So this is all sort of coming together under what a lot of people would describe as the sort of essential role of a bass player. Within a band or an ensemble setting anyway, bass players are there to support. They're there to contribute and support the other musicians and the rest of the song. A lot of the time it's, the instrument is referred to as being the sort of the bridge between rhythm and harmony, which is sort of what we're going to demonstrate now. The sort of rhythmic aspect you can see from us locking in with the kick drum, us sort of picking up that rhythmic pattern there. Harmonically is what we're going to move on to now. So let's say, okay, drummer's come in, done his bit, he's really happy with the part, and as soon as he starts playing that, the keyboard player in the band says, oh, that's really cool, I've got a great song that would go with that, and he starts playing a couple chords. So I've got some chords programmed into the loop as well. Let's have a listen to them. Okay, so I go to the keyboard player and I say, oh, that sounds really great, you know, what are you playing? And he says to me, okay, all I'm doing is playing different chord positions of D minor. Now, that's really important information for me to know, because knowing that he's playing D minor gives me a clue as to what notes I can choose, sort of how I can, basically what notes are best for me to pick. It's not just a case of me playing absolutely anything that I want. Because we've got to contribute, we've got to support. We've got to support not only this drum pattern, but also this D minor tonality that the keyboard player is outlining. So here's what I would do. First of all, I think, okay, what are the notes in my D minor arpeggio? So D minor, it will match with the chord that the keys player is playing, and those notes are D, 5th fret on the A string, F, 8th fret on the A string, A, which is 7th fret on a D string, and then you could add the octave at the top, which is the 7th fret on the G string. And anyone who's playing an extended range bass, so a 5 or a 6 string, if you've got a low B, you could also add it there. So 3rd fret on the B string for the D, F at 6th fret, A at 5th on the E string, and then D back where we started, 5th fret on the D, so on the A, excuse me. Okay, so all I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to play that exact same kick drum rhythm, but I'm just going to hold a D at the bottom. Yes, there are other notes I can play, and we will look at that in sort of videos and future lessons to come in this series. But for now, just keep things simple. We'll sort of solve one problem at a time. I'm just going to play that D in that kick drum rhythm, but alongside the keys pattern that was playing, and you'll see it will support both aspects of them incredibly. And all of this is coming, again, like I say, just from a bit of analysis, a bit of homework on what the drums are doing, what the keyboard player is doing, and the two match together perfectly. Here we go. So, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it works great. Octave lower. So you can see how it works. Just a little bit of homework is required on what the drums are doing, what the keyboard is doing, and what it might be quite a cool exercise for you to do is go through the music on your phone, on your iPod, on your laptop, tablet, whatever you have, and listen to bass players and sort of try and find tunes where people are doing this. So to see, okay, you can hear the line well enough, but try and sort of figure out where it's come from, sort of what within the song has been the kind of stimulus material for that line, if you like. So that's it for this lesson. What I want to add at this point is a bit of a disclaimer. With anything that's in this lesson or the rest of the lessons in this series, these are not rules of music by any means. I prefer to look at them as sort of good things to think about. It's not to say that you absolutely have to do this, because you might find yourself playing in a situation where your band doesn't have a drummer. So you've still got to come up with a bass part. Yes, we're going to kind of look at a few more things like that in the future, but for now, excuse me, for now, just try and use it as a different way of coming up with lines. Like I say, you don't necessarily have to do it. There are plenty of great bass lines that don't lock in with a kick drum at all, and there are plenty that do. So just look at it as a different way of getting material. If you're out of ideas or you can't think of anything, you could just analyse the other parts in the tune and sort of use that as a stimulus. Anyway, thanks very much for watching the lesson. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, feedback. Would love to hear what you guys think. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and also my website, which is www.hughrichardson.co.uk. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again on the next lesson. Take care.